The envelope hit the table so hard that the coffee cups rattled. Inside it was a check. A real check, with real numbers printed in crisp black ink. $40,000. Zara stared at it. Her hands were not shaking, but they wanted to. She was 24 years old, sitting in a restaurant in Seoul, South Korea, a city she had never been to before last week. Across the table sat a woman in a cream silk blouse, pearl earrings, and a smile so cold it could freeze the Han River. This was Mrs. Choi, June's mother. And she had just slid that check across the table like it was nothing. Like it was a tip. Like Zara's entire relationship. 2 years of love, of tears, of laughter, of late-night phone calls across 12 time zones. Could be folded up neatly and stuffed inside a white envelope. "Take it," Mrs. Choi said softly. Her English was perfect. Her eyes were harder than the diamond on her finger. "Take it, go back to America, and never contact my son again. This is more than generous." The restaurant was quiet. Waiters in white gloves moved like ghosts around them. Nobody looked at them. Nobody dared. Zara looked down at the check one more time. Then she looked up. And she smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not a sad smile. A real one, slow and warm, like sunrise over Atlanta on a summer morning. "Mrs. Choi," she said, her voice steady as still water, "I didn't fly 11 hours to take your money." She pushed the envelope back across the table. Mrs. Choi's smile disappeared. "And that was only the beginning. Wait, before we go any further. Where are you watching this from right now? Drop your city and country in the comments below. We want to know where our family is. And if you're new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button because of this story. It is going to shake you. To understand why Zara was sitting in that restaurant, in that city, facing that woman, we have to go back. All the way back to a rainy Tuesday in Atlanta, Georgia, 2 years earlier. Zara Collins was the kind of girl who made things happen with her own 2 hands. She grew up in a small apartment in southwest Atlanta with her mama, her grandma they called Nana, and a cat named Biscuit who thought he was a dog. They didn't have much. But Nana always said, "Baby, what you lack in money, you make up for in grace." And Zara had grace by the bucketful. She was studying graphic design at a community college, working part-time at a print shop, and saving up every dollar she could. She didn't go to fancy parties. She didn't wear designer clothes. She wore thrifted jeans and natural hair, and a laugh so big and bright it lit up whatever room she walked into. She was not looking for love. Love found her anyway, in the most ordinary way possible. It was a Tuesday. She was at the campus library, headphones in, working on a poster project, when someone tapped her shoulder. She pulled out one earbud and looked up. Standing there was a boy, no, a young man, holding a stack of books, looking mildly embarrassed. He had dark hair that flopped slightly over his forehead, a gray hoodie, and round glasses that were slightly crooked on his nose. "I'm sorry," he said. His accent was soft, musical almost. "I think that is my charger?" He pointed at the wall outlet next to her chair. Sure enough, 2 chargers were plugged in. Zara's pink one, and a white one she hadn't noticed. "Oh," she laughed. "Sorry, I thought that was mine." No, it's fine, He reached over to get it, and knocked his entire stack of books onto the floor. They both bent down to pick them up at the same time, and nearly bumped heads. They both froze. Then they both burst out laughing. His name was Junho Choi. But he said, "You can call me June. Everyone does here." Here. Like he was a visitor. Like Atlanta was a place he was just passing through. She would later learn how right that was. But on that Tuesday, in that library, with rain tapping against the big glass windows, none of that mattered yet. What mattered was that June had the most genuine eyes she had ever seen. Not trying to impress her. Not performing. Just present. Real. They talked for 3 hours. By the time the library was closing, Zara realized she had not finished a single pixel of her project. She didn't mind at all. Over the next few weeks, Zara learned more about June. He was 26, finishing a graduate degree in business at the university near her college. He was from Seoul. His father ran a large company, something to do with real estate and construction, and June was in America to study before going back to take his place in the family business. He was here for 1 more year. That detail sat in the back of Zara's mind like a small stone in a shoe. Not painful enough to stop walking, but always there. She tried not to like him too much. She really tried. But June made it impossible. He was not like the boys she had grown up around. He wasn't flashy. He didn't brag. He asked questions, real questions, and then he actually listened to the answers. When Zara talked about her design work, he leaned forward. When she talked about her Nana, he smiled like he understood exactly how sacred that bond was. He came to her print shop one day just to bring her a coffee. He stayed for an hour, just watching her work, asking about the machines. He told her she was talented. Not the way boys say it to seem nice, the way people say it when they actually mean it. And Zara, careful, guarded, practical Zara, fell. She fell hard. Their first official date was at a small Ethiopian restaurant near her neighborhood. She had suggested it, half expecting him to make a face or suggest somewhere more normal. Instead, his eyes went wide and he said, "I've never had this. Show me everything." She showed him everything. He loved every bite. By month 3, they were inseparable on weekends. By month 5, June had met Nana, which was basically the Zara Collins version of a marriage proposal. Nana made him sweet potato pie, watched him take a big bite, and said, "He's a keeper." That was the highest honor she gave. June told Zara about his family slowly, carefully, like he was unwrapping something fragile. His mother, Mrs. Choi, was the true power behind the family. His father, Mr. Choi, was successful but quiet. He did what his wife decided. June had an older sister, Soo-yeon, who was already married to a man from a good family. His mother had plans for June too. Had always had plans. "She has someone in mind for me," June told Zara one evening, staring at the ceiling of his apartment. "Back home. A girl from another business family. They've been talking about it for years." Zara was quiet for a long moment. "And what do you want?" she asked. He turned to look at her. "You," he said simply. "I want you." She believed him. She just didn't know yet what that would cost. It was month 7 when June first told his mother about Zara. He didn't mean to. It slipped out during a video call when his mother asked why he seemed so happy lately. June, too honest June, smiled and said, "I met someone." The silence on the other end of that call lasted 4 full seconds. Zara was not on the call, but June told her about it afterward, and she could tell by the way he described it, carefully, leaving out certain words, that it had not gone well. She asked questions, he said. "About your background, your family, your education." "And?" Zara asked. "And I told her the truth." He paused. "She said she wants to meet you." Zara had seen enough movies to know what that meant. She was not naive. She knew that walking into a wealthy Korean family as a young black woman from Southwest Atlanta was not going to be simple. She had read stories. She knew the world was still the world, no matter how much people pretended otherwise. But she also knew herself. She knew her worth. And she knew June. So she said yes. What came next, over the following months, was a slow, quiet war. It didn't come with shouting. It didn't come with insults, not direct ones. Mrs. Choi was too elegant for that. Instead, it came in other ways. It started with gift boxes. 3 weeks after June told his mother about Zara, a package arrived at June's apartment. Inside were skincare products, all labeled in Korean, and a note from his mother suggesting he give them to his friend. The products were all several shades lighter than Zara's complexion. Things meant for brightening, for lightening. Zara looked at the box for a long moment. Then she put it in the back of the closet and said nothing. Next came the phone calls to June. Long, carefully structured conversations where his mother would talk about the family business, about responsibility, about the girl back home. Hyunji, such a lovely girl, from such a respected family, and weave in little questions. "Is your friend educated? What does her father do? Where does her family come from?" June answered every question with patience and love for Zara. But Zara could see it was tiring him, like water wearing down stone. Then came the relatives. June's uncle visited Atlanta on a business trip and invited June to dinner. Just June, not Zara. Over that dinner, the uncle apparently spent 2 hours telling June stories about Korean men who had married foreign women and caused problems for the family name. He never said Zara's name once. June came home furious. It was the first time Zara had ever seen him truly angry. "They think they can scare me," he said, pacing. "They think if they just keep pushing." "June." Zara stood up and took both his hands. "How much longer do you have here? Before you have to go back?" He stopped pacing. 5 months, he said quietly. 5 months. The stone sat heavier in her shoe. The message came on a Wednesday night. Zara was at home sketching a logo for a client when her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a news article. Someone had sent it to her anonymously. The headline read, Choi construction heir to wed Seoul business heiress in ceremony planned for late spring. Below it was a photo. June. In a suit. Standing next to a beautiful Korean woman with a polished smile. Both of them posed in front of what looked like a formal venue. The article had been published just 3 days ago. In Seoul. Zara's hands went still. She read the article twice. 3 times. Her heart was beating so loud she could hear it. Then her phone rang. It was June. She stared at his name on the screen for 5 whole seconds. Then she picked up. Zara, he started, and the panic in his voice told her everything. He had seen it too. He knew she had seen it. Tell me, she said, her voice very calm, very quiet, that this is not real. The silence on the other end of the phone lasted exactly 3 seconds. And in those 3 seconds, Zara Collins felt her whole world tilt sideways. 3 seconds. That's how long the silence lasted on the phone. But for Zara, those 3 seconds felt like 3 years. She was standing in her small apartment, the glow of her laptop screen lighting her face, that newspaper article still open in front of her. June's face staring back at her from the photo. Suit. Smile. Standing next to a woman she had never seen before, close enough to touch. Zara, June finally said. His voice cracked on her name. Please listen to me. I'm listening, she said. Calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm decides to introduce itself. That article, I did not know it was going to be published. I swear to you. My mother, she arranged a meeting. A formal meeting between our families. I didn't go willingly. She told me it was a business dinner. When I got there, Hyunji was already seated. There were photographers. He exhaled sharply. By the time I understood what was happening, the pictures were already taken. Zara closed her eyes. She wanted to be angry. She was ready to be angry. She had the words lined up and everything. But she had known June for 7 months. She knew how his mother operated. She had watched Mrs. Choi move people like pieces on a chessboard, smooth, quiet, always 3 steps ahead. Did you tell them no? Zara asked. After the photos. Did you stand up and tell them no? A pause. I tried. June. Yes or no? Another pause. Longer this time. No, he whispered. I didn't. Not that night. I was in shock. And my father was there and my uncle, and everyone was looking at me like it was already decided. Zara set the phone down on the table. Not hanging up. Just setting it down. She pressed both palms flat on the table and took 3 slow breaths. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Something her Nana had taught her for moments when the world got too loud. Baby, before you react, make sure you're responding to what actually happened, not to your fear. She picked the phone back up. Okay, she said. Okay. June sounded confused. I'm not breaking up with you tonight, she said. But we need to talk. Face to face. Tomorrow. He agreed immediately. He would have agreed to anything at that moment. They met at an Ethiopian restaurant. Their restaurant. It felt important to Zara to be somewhere that held good memories, a kind of armor. June looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were red behind his glasses. He was already at the table when she arrived, and he stood up the moment he saw her walk through the door, like he needed her to know that much, at least. They sat down. They talked for 2 hours. Real talking, the hard kind, where you say the things you've been stepping around. June told her everything. How his mother had been planning this match with Hyunji's family for 3 years. How the 2 families had business ties. How going against it wasn't just about love. It meant going against his father's company, his inheritance, his entire future as his family had built it. So what are you saying? Zara asked carefully. June reached across the table and took her hand. I'm saying I love you, he said. And I'm saying I'm scared. And I'm saying I need more time. Zara looked at their hands together on the table. How much time? I will go back to Seoul in 4 months, he said. Let me go back. Let me talk to them in person. Face to face. My mother can't hide behind phone calls and arrange dinners if I'm standing right in front of her. Zara thought about it for a long moment. And if she doesn't listen? June looked her straight in the eyes. Then I choose you, he said. No matter what it costs. She wanted to believe him. She decided to. The next 4 months were like walking a tightrope above a very long fall. On the surface, things were almost normal. June and Zara spent time together, laughed together, held on to what they had built. They went to her cousin's birthday cookout, and June ate 3 plates of food and learned how to play spades badly. He introduced her to Korean drama reruns, and she cried at every single one while pretending she wasn't crying. But underneath all of it, something was tightening. Mrs. Choi had not stopped. She graduated from skincare products and strategic phone calls to something bigger. Money. First, she quietly hired a private firm, June found out later, to look into Zara's background. Her neighborhood. Her family finances. Her college enrollment. Everything. The report came back with nothing scandalous because there was nothing scandalous. But Mrs. Choi took the ordinary details of Zara's ordinary life and began using them as weapons in conversations with June. She is not educated at a university. She works at a print shop. June, you have a responsibility to this family's name. Then she flew one of June's cousins, a young woman named Irene who was closer to his age, to Atlanta. Irene was charming, pretty, and very deliberately befriended Zara. She showed up at the print shop, complimenting Zara's work. She invited her for bubble tea. She laughed at all the right moments. And then slowly she started talking. You know how hard it is for June back home. The pressure he's under? My aunt, his mother, she's not a bad person. She just loves her son. She doesn't want to see him throw away everything he's worked for. Have you thought about what your life would actually look like in Seoul? It's very different there. People are not always welcome. It can be very lonely. She never said anything outright cruel. She was too practiced for that. But every conversation left a small deposit of doubt in Zara's mind. Like seeds planted in soil, waiting for rain. Zara noticed. She didn't say much about it. But she noticed. The week before June flew back to Seoul, something happened that Zara would not forget for the rest of her life. She was leaving the print shop on a Friday evening when a black car pulled up slowly beside her on the sidewalk. The window rolled down. It was a man she didn't recognize. Middle-aged. Korean. Well-dressed. He introduced himself as a representative of the Choi family's legal team. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a check for $15,000 and a single-typed page that outlined, in clean legal language, an agreement stating that Zara would cease all contact with Junho Choi in exchange for the payment. Mr. and Mrs. Choi are prepared to be very generous, the man said politely. This is just the opening offer. Zara looked at the check. Then she looked at the man. She handed the envelope back through the window. Tell them, she said, that I'm not for sale. The window rolled up. The car drove away. She stood on the sidewalk for a long moment. Then she called June and told him exactly what had happened. The argument that followed was the worst they had ever had. Not between Zara and June. Between June and his mother, on a video call that Zara sat beside him for. She watched June, for the first time, raise his voice at his mother. I watched his hands shake. His mother, on the other side of the screen, stayed completely composed. I did what was necessary, she said simply. If she refused, that tells you something. It tells me she has integrity, June said. It tells me she is stubborn, his mother replied. Stubbornness is not a quality for a Choi family daughter-in-law. She ended the call. June sat in silence for a very long time. Zara put her hand on his back. Go home, she said quietly. Go home and fight for us properly. He left for Seoul 10 days later. And Zara stood at the airport watching his gate long after he had disappeared through it. The first 2 weeks after June left were the hardest. He called every day, but the calls were shorter than she wanted and heavier than she expected. He was fighting battles on his end that she couldn't fully see. Long dinners with his parents, meetings with relatives, conversations that went in circles. Hyunji was still very much present. Her family and the Choi family had dinner twice in those 2 weeks. June attended both. He told Zara he had no choice, that refusing outright would destroy things before he had a chance to fix them. He needed to play the long game. Zara understood the logic. But understanding something doesn't make it hurt less. She threw herself into her work. She took on 3 new design clients. She spent weekends with Nana, playing cards and watching old movies. One evening she broke down and told Nana everything. All of it. The check. The lawyer on the sidewalk. The arranged dinner. All of it. Nana listened to every word without interrupting once. When Zara finished, Nana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Baby, people who spend money trying to move somebody out of the way are scared. You don't spend that kind of energy on somebody you're not afraid of. That woman is afraid of you. Why would she be afraid of me? Zara said, I have nothing she wants. Nana smiled. You have her son's whole heart. And she knows she doesn't. Zara wiped her eyes. Then came the call that changed everything, again. It was week 3. Late at night. June called, and before she could say hello, he said, "My mother wants to meet you." Zara went very still. "She wants you to come to Seoul." "June, I know what you're thinking. But this is different. This is not a trick. She's agreed to sit down with you. Properly. At a restaurant. Just the two of you." He paused. "I think she's testing you. I think she wants to look you in the eye and decide for herself." "And if I fail the test?" "You won't," he said. Immediately. Without hesitation. Zara looked around her small apartment. At Biscuit the cat asleep on the couch. At the framed poster she had designed herself, hanging on the wall. At the life she had built with her own hands from nothing. She thought about the lawyer and the car window. She thought about Nana's words. "She is afraid of you." "Okay," Zara said. She booked the cheapest flight she could afford. She packed one good dress, simple, black, elegant. She called in a favor from her boss for 3 days off. She landed in Seoul on a Tuesday morning. June met her at the airport and held her for a long time without saying anything. They had one evening together, walking along the Han River, eating street food, pretending for a few hours that everything was simple. Then came Wednesday morning. And the restaurant. And Mrs. Choi across the table, pearls gleaming, smile cold enough to frost glass. And the envelope. The check for $40,000 sliding across the white tablecloth like it was nothing. Zara pushed the envelope back. Mrs. Choi stared at it. Then at Zara. The composure on her face shifted. Just barely, just slightly, like a mask slipping a centimeter. "Young lady," she said slowly. "I don't think you understand the full picture." "Then show it to me," Zara said. Mrs. Choi studied her for a long moment. Then she opened her handbag, designer, obviously, and placed something else on the table. Not a check this time. A photograph. Zara looked at it. Her stomach dropped. It was a photo of June. Taken recently, within the last week, based on the jacket he was wearing. She recognized the jacket. He was sitting at a restaurant table, across from Hyunji, holding her hand, smiling. Mrs. Choi folded her hands neatly on the table. "My son," she said softly, "is not as decided as he has led you to believe." The restaurant was very quiet. Zara's heart was doing something complicated inside her chest. She looked at the photo one more time. Then she looked up at Mrs. Choi. And she said 5 words that made the older woman blink for the first time. "Set up the family dinner. Set up the family dinner." Those 5 words hung in the air of that fancy restaurant like smoke. Mrs. Choi did not move for 3 full seconds. For a woman who controlled every room she walked into, 3 seconds of stillness was practically an earthquake. "I beg your pardon?" she said. Zara clasped her hands on the table. Calm. Steady. Like she was discussing the weather. "You heard me," she said. "Set up the family dinner. The whole family. You, Mr. Choi, the sister, whoever else matters. I want to sit at that table. I want to look everyone in the eye." She paused. "You've been fighting me from a distance for almost a year. Come close. Let's settle this properly." Mrs. Choi stared at her. In all her years of managing people, business partners, board members, society women who smiled with teeth, nobody had ever pushed the money back and then asked for more access. Everyone either took the check or ran. This girl had done neither. "You are very bold," Mrs. Choi said finally. Her voice was unreadable. "My Nana raised me that way," Zara replied simply. A long silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, Mrs. Choi picked up the envelope, placed it back in her handbag, and stood. "Friday evening," she said. 7 o'clock. "I will send a car." She walked out without looking back. Zara sat alone at that table for a moment. She picked up her water glass and took a slow sip. Her hand was shaking, just slightly, but she did not let it shake until Mrs. Choi was completely gone. June found out about the dinner invitation before the car even arrived to take Zara back to the hotel. His mother had called him the moment she left the restaurant. He showed up at Zara's hotel room door 20 minutes later, slightly out of breath, glasses slightly crooked, looking like a man who had just been told the 2 most important things in his life were about to sit in the same room together. "You asked for the family dinner," he said. "It wasn't a question." "I did," Zara said. "Zara." He came inside, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed. "My family is not like, they're going to try to make you feel small. My aunt will ask questions about money. My uncle will talk over you. My sister. June." Zara sat beside him. "Did you hold Hyunji's hand at a restaurant this week?" He went very still. There it was. The photo. He saw on her face that she had seen it. My mother arranged that dinner, he said carefully. I went because I was trying to keep peace while I figured out how to. Did you hold her hand? A pause. She reached across the table. I didn't pull away fast enough. His jaw tightened. It wasn't what it looked like. But I know how it looked. And I'm sorry. Zara looked at him for a long moment, reading his face the way she had learned for over 2 years. Looking for the lie, the deflection, the performance. She didn't find any of it. What she found was a man who was exhausted, torn between a family that had shaped everything he was and a love that had shown him everything he could be. She took his hand. I'm not walking into that dinner to fight your family, she said. I'm walking in so they can see me. Really see me. Not the rumors, not the background check, not the girl from the wrong zip code. She squeezed his hand. They built a picture of me in their heads. I'm going to replace it. June looked at her for a long moment. How are you so calm? He whispered. She smiled. I'm terrified, she said. But my Nana always said do the scary thing first, then be scared after. He pulled her into a hug and held on tight. 2 days to Friday. Zara had one dress. Simple. Black. She had packed it specifically, back in Atlanta, knowing somehow that she might need it. She laid it on the bed Thursday night and stared at it. She called Nana. Nana picked up on the second ring, the way she always did, like she had been waiting. Zara told her about the photo, about the dinner, about all of it. Nana listened. Then she said, You know what your great-grandmother used to say before she walked into any room that didn't want her there? What? Zara said. She said, I am not asking for a seat at this table. God already put one there with my name on it. I'm just coming to sit down. Zara was quiet. You go to that dinner, Nana said. You eat their food. You look them in the eye. You be exactly who you are, nothing more, nothing less. That's all you've ever needed to be. Zara slept better that night than she had in weeks. The car arrived at exactly 7. Zara wore the black dress. Simple gold earrings. Nana's earrings, the small hoops she had pressed into Zara's hand at the airport. Natural hair out, full and beautiful. Minimal makeup. She looked like herself. Exactly herself. The Choi family home was not what she expected. She had imagined something cold and modern, all glass and sharp angles. Instead, it was a traditional Hanok-style house, updated with modern comforts but still warm with wood and stone and carefully tended plants. Beautiful. Old. Full of history. They love beautiful things, Zara thought. Good. So do I. She was shown into a formal dining room. The table was already full. Mr. Choi, June's father, sat at the head. He was quieter looking than she had imagined. Silver at his temples. Careful eyes. Mrs. Choi sat to his right. Composed as always. June's sister Soo-yeon and her husband sat across the table. Soo-yeon was sharp-featured and elegant. She looked at Zara the way people look at something they haven't decided about yet. 2 aunts. 1 uncle. And at the far end, June. He stood the moment she walked in. That small gesture. He stood up. In front of his whole family, he stood up. She loved him fiercely in that moment. She was seated beside him. Mrs. Choi had made sure there was distance between them, Zara on one side, 1 aunt between them, and Mrs. Choi. The first 30 minutes were politely excruciating. Food arrived in careful courses. Everyone spoke mainly in Korean, with occasional English directed at Zara. Not enough to include her, just enough to seem polite. The uncle asked what her father did. Zara answered without flinching. Her father wasn't in the picture, and she said so simply, without shame. The aunt asked about her degree. Zara explained her design work, her clients, her plans. Direct. Clear. Not defensive. Mrs. Choi watched all of this without speaking. Then Soo-yeon, the sister, spoke. Zara had expected her to be the cruelest one. But what came out surprised her. I looked at your portfolio, Soo-yeon said. Matter of fact. Almost challenging. Online. June sent me the link. Everyone at the table went slightly still. Apparently, this was news to Mrs. Choi too. Okay, Zara said simply. The branding work you did for that restaurant in Atlanta, Soo-yeon continued. The logo system. The menu design. It's very good. A pause. Thank you, Zara said. I didn't say it to compliment you, Soo-yeon said. I said it because it's true. I run the interior design branch of our company. I know good visual work. An odd moment. Not quite warmth. But not coldness either. Something in between, like a door that was not yet open but was no longer fully shut. Then the uncle redirected. He launched into a speech about family legacy, the Choi name, the importance of shared background between couples. He was speaking Korean now, not English, and Zara caught maybe one word in 5. But she watched his face, his gestures. She understood the shape of what he was saying even without the words. When he finished, everyone looked at Zara. She took a slow breath. Then she spoke. "I don't know everything your family has built," she said. "I can't speak your language yet." She paused on that word. Yet. Let it sit. "But I know what it costs to build something from nothing. My grandmother raised me alone after raising my mother alone. She worked 2 jobs until her feet hurt every night. She never complained once. She just built." Zara looked around the table. "I was raised by a woman like that. And because of her, I am not afraid of hard things." Silence. She looked at Mr. Choi directly. The first time she had spoken directly to him. "I'm not here to take your son away from this family," she said. "I'm here because he is worth fighting for. And so is this." She gestured between herself and June. "All I'm asking for is a fair chance to show you that." Mr. Choi held her gaze. For the first time all evening, he nodded. Small. Barely visible. But Zara saw it. Then the doors opened. And Hyunji walked in. Zara felt June go rigid beside her. She was beautiful, tall, polished, moving through the room like she belonged there because she always had. She apologized gracefully for being late, greeted the family warmly, and sat down in the empty chair that Zara now realized had been left deliberately. Mrs. Choi had planned this. The whole dinner. The seating. The timing. All of it. A test within a test. Hyunji greeted Zara with a perfect smile. "You must be Zara," she said warmly in flawless English. "I've heard so much about you." The way she said it was not unkind. That almost made it worse. June's hand found Zara's under the table. She felt him lace his fingers through hers. In front of everyone. Mrs. Choi saw it. Hyunji saw it. The whole table saw it. And then Mr. Choi did something nobody expected. He set down his chopsticks. He looked at his wife. And in quiet, measured Korean, June translated in a whisper, he said, "Enough. We did not raise our son to be managed like a business asset. Let the boy speak." The table went very quiet. Mrs. Choi's face remained still. But something shifted behind her eyes. All heads turned to June. He stood up slowly. He looked at his mother. Then his father. Then around the table. Then at Zara. He opened his mouth. And his phone rang. The sound cracked through the silence like a stone through glass. Everyone froze. June looked at the screen. His face went white. He looked at Zara. Then at his father. "It's the hospital," he said. His voice was barely a sound. "It's my grandmother." The chair scraped back. He was already moving. And in that single moment, the dinner, the speech, the battle, all of it, dissolved into something much more real. Because some things are bigger than money. And some tests have nothing to do with families or checks or arranged dinners. Some tests come at midnight, in hospital waiting rooms, where the only thing that matters is who shows up and holds your hand. Zara was already standing. Already reaching for her coat. Already following him out the door. And behind them, slowly, quietly, so did someone nobody expected. The Choi family dining room was the kind of room that made you feel small on purpose. Everything in it was designed to remind you of power. The long dark wood table. The high-backed chairs. The framed family portraits on the walls going back 3 generations. The chandelier overhead that probably cost more than Zara's entire apartment building. Zara sat at that table in her simple black dress, back straight, hands folded, and felt every single eye in the room on her. To her left was June, rigid with tension, his jaw tight. To her right, an empty chair. Across the table sat Mr. Choi, June's father, quiet and unreadable as stone. Beside him sat Soo-yeon, June's older sister, arms crossed, lips thin. At the head of the table sat Mrs. Choi, pearl earrings in place, watching Zara the way a chess player watches the board. And at the far end, almost like a prop placed deliberately, sat Hyunji. Beautiful. Polished. Looking at Zara with something that wasn't quite confidence, more like curiosity. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Then Mrs. Choi said, very pleasantly, "Shall we eat?" The first course arrived. Some kind of delicate soup. Everyone lifted their spoons. Zara lifted hers too. She had watched 3 YouTube videos on Korean dining etiquette on the plane. She was not going to give anyone a reason to dismiss her over-table manners. Mrs. Choi watched her do it correctly and said nothing. Which meant something. The conversation started carefully. Mr. Choi asked Zara about America. Safe questions. She answered warmly, clearly, without performing. She talked about Atlanta, about her work, about growing up with her Nana. When she mentioned her Nana, something small shifted in Mr. Choi's face. Barely visible. But there. Your grandmother raised you? He asked. Along with my mother, yes sir, Zara said. My Nana is the strongest person I know. Everything I am, she had a hand in building. Mr. Choi nodded slowly. He didn't say more. But he picked up his soup spoon again, and somehow the temperature in the room dropped half a degree of tension. Soo-yeon spoke next. Her English was sharp and direct. You're a graphic designer? She said. More of a challenge than a question. Yes, Zara said. At a print shop. I run the design department, Zara said, without flinching. I also take independent clients. I built that side of the business from nothing over 2 years. 3 of my clients are now regional companies. She paused. I'm proud of it. Soo-yeon looked at her for a moment. Then she looked down at her soup. It wasn't warm. But it wasn't dismissal either. Then Mrs. Choi set down her spoon. Zara, she said, and the table went very quiet. I want to ask you something directly. And I want a direct answer. Of course, Zara said. What exactly do you want from my son? The question landed in the middle of the table like a stone dropped in still water. June stiffened beside her. Zara didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on Mrs. Choi. I want to love him well, she said simply. That's all. I'm not here for your family's money. I'm not here for a title or a company or a status. I'm here because your son is one of the kindest, most genuine people I have ever met. And I think he deserves someone who sees him, not what he inherits. Silence. I know I am not what you pictured, Zara continued, her voice steady and warm. I know my background is different. I know I don't come from a business family. But I come from a family that taught me that love is not something you spend money on. It's something you show up for. Every single day. She reached into the small bag beside her chair and placed something on the table. It was a card. Handmade. Simple. She slid it gently toward Mrs. Choi. I made that, Zara said quietly. By hand. Last night in the hotel room. Mrs. Choi looked at it but didn't touch it. On the front was a detailed ink illustration, a family tree. Beautifully drawn with fine lines and careful detail. At the roots, Korean characters that June had taught her to write phonetically, meaning foundation and strength. At the branches, small portraits of the Choi family, Mr. and Mrs. Choi, Soo-yeon, June. Each one drawn from the family photos she had seen on the walls when she walked in. And at the very top of the tree, one open branch. Not filled in. Waiting. Mrs. Choi stared at the card. The room was completely silent. I'm not asking to replace anything, Zara said softly. I'm asking for one open branch. Hyun-ji, at the far end of the table, exhaled slowly. Then she did something that surprised everyone. She stood up. Mrs. Choi, she said carefully in Korean. June quietly translated for Zara under his breath. I have respected your family for many years. But I think we both know this arrangement was never truly what Junho wanted. I would rather be chosen than placed. She bowed her head slightly. I wish him well. Genuinely. She sat back down. The silence that followed was the heaviest one yet. Mr. Choi cleared his throat. He looked at his wife. Mrs. Choi had not moved. She was still looking at the card. What happened next, nobody at that table expected. Mrs. Choi picked up the card. She looked at it for a long time. At the small portrait Zara had drawn of her, the pearl earrings, the careful posture, the strong jaw. Zara had drawn her with dignity. With respect. Not as a villain. Something moved across the older woman's face. Slow, like a cloud shifting. My mother, Mrs. Choi said suddenly, very quietly, was not accepted by my husband's family when we married. Everyone at the table went still. She was from a poor family. Nobody, they said. Her voice was measured. Controlled. But underneath it, something old and honest was moving. They spent years making her feel like she was not enough. It broke something in her that never fully healed. She set the card down carefully in front of her. I told myself I was protecting my son, she said. I told myself I was being practical. Responsible. A long pause. I did not ask myself if I was becoming the thing that hurt my own mother. June's hand found Zara's under the table. Mrs. Choi finally looked up. Directly at Zara. For the first time, the coldness was gone. What was underneath it was just a mother. Tired, proud, and, in this moment, honest. You drew my portrait with kindness, she said. After everything I did to push you away. Because that's who I was raised to be, Zara said gently. My Nana taught me that. Mrs. Choi was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "She sounds like a remarkable woman." "She is," Zara said. "You'd like her. She's stubborn too." It was a risk. A small, warm, perfectly placed risk. And for the first time that evening, maybe for the first time in this entire war, Mrs. Choi smiled. A real one. Small, reluctant, almost surprised by itself. Soo-yeon made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Mr. Choi picked up his soup spoon again, hiding his expression, but his shoulders had dropped 2 full inches from where they'd been sitting. Dinner continued. Slowly, carefully, like ice melting in warm water, the table changed. Soo-yeon asked Zara about her design work. Not as a challenge this time, genuinely. When Zara pulled out her phone and showed her portfolio, Soo-yeon leaned in and said, "This one. Who is the client?" When Zara told her it was a regional food brand, Soo-yeon said quietly, "We've been looking for a designer for our company's new campaign." June almost choked on his water. Mr. Choi, by the end of the main course, had asked Zara 3 questions about Atlanta. Real ones, curious ones. He had apparently always wanted to visit America's South. He had read about it once in a book. "My Nana makes sweet potato pie," Zara told him. "If you ever visit, she will feed you until you can't stand up." Mr. Choi laughed. It was a short, quiet laugh. But it was real. And Mrs. Choi, who had spent $40,000, hired investigators, sent lawyers to sidewalks, arranged fake dinners and fake photographs. Mrs. Choi sat at the head of her table and watched her son. I really watched him. I watched how he looked at Zara when Zara was talking to someone else. That unguarded, full, quiet kind of love that a mother recognizes because she has seen it before. In her husband's face, 30 years ago, before the business and the pressure and the weight of legacy covered it over. After dinner, as the table was being cleared, Mrs. Choi stood and walked around to where Zara sat. Zara stood. They faced each other. Mrs. Choi reached out and straightened the collar of Zara's black dress. It was a small gesture. A motherly one. The kind that says more than words. "You will need patience," Mrs. Choi said quietly. "This family is not easy." "I know," Zara said. "And I will not pretend tonight fixes everything." "I know that too." Mrs. Choi studied her face one more time. Then she said, "But you may come back." 3 words. Offered carefully, like something precious being placed in new hands. Zara nodded once. "Thank you." It wasn't a fairy tale ending. No one cried. No one embraced dramatically. The Choi family didn't transform overnight into something warm and open. That would take time. Months, maybe years. But Zara had not come to Seoul for a fairy tale. She had come for one open branch. And she had it. Later that night, Zara and June walked along the Han River. The city lit up around them, bright and loud and alive. "You drew my mother's portrait," June said, still a little disbelieving. "After everything." "She's your mother," Zara said simply. He stopped walking. He turned to face her, and in the glow of the city lights she could see everything on his face. The relief, the exhaustion, the love, the gratitude. "I don't deserve you," he said. "No," she agreed cheerfully. "You really don't." He laughed. She laughed. He pulled her close and held her on that bridge over the Han River, while Seoul moved and buzzed all around them. And for a moment everything was exactly enough. Back in Atlanta, in a small apartment, Nana's phone rang. She picked it up. "Nana," Zara said. "I think it worked." Nana was quiet for 1 second. Then, "Baby, I never doubted you for a single minute." "Not one." Zara smiled so hard her face hurt. She had walked into that family with no money, no connections, no strategy beyond being exactly who she was. And it turned out that was the one thing $40,000 couldn't compete with. The end. And that, right there, is the power of showing up as yourself, fully, warmly, and without apology. Zara didn't outspend them. She outloved them. Tell us in the comments, what was your favorite moment in this story? Was it the card? The dinner table? Nana's last line? We want to know. And if this story moved you even a little, if it made you feel something real, please subscribe to this channel to support our growth. Every single subscriber tells us to keep going, keep creating, keep telling stories that matter. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. We'll see you in the next one.